I'm going to show you 8 reasons why your dirt bike is overheating, why it's happening, and then at the end I'm going to show you one simple way to help prevent it from happening. Heat is the biggest enemy of your engine, so when it gets too hot, it'll not only wear out the parts faster, but it could seize the engine. One of the most common signs or symptoms that your dirt bike is overheating is coolant spewing out the radiator overflow hose. So obviously this is for liquid cooled engines only. So your radiator, it has a hose at the top that goes down. You generally don't even see it unless you're looking for it, but when your engine gets too hot, this will be too much pressure for the radiator cap to hold, and then it'll leak past it and then blow out this radiator hose. So when you see coolant coming out of this hose out onto the ground, that means your bike is getting too hot. Or if your bike is steaming, this is similar to coolant coming out the overflow hose, but if it's getting so hot that this coolant or water is turning to steam, smoke, that's a bad sign. You definitely need to cool the engine down, and there's a chance there could be some damage already. Now, of course, if you're riding through water, the water itself could cause steam because it's splashing up on the hot engine and it turns into steam. So you gotta understand whether it's the coolant that's steaming or if you're just riding through water. Another sign is if you smell coolant burning. This is a very distinct sweet smell, and although it doesn't necessarily mean that it is overheating right now, it may have already overheated or it will. So when this coolant and water gets burned up, then you lose that cooling capacity. So when the radiator loses the water, then there's less water to circulate through the engine. It'll heat up faster and cause your bike to overheat. Another sign is when your dirt bike loses power. Back when I had a KTM 144, this is what happened. I had felt something weird when I was riding it. I had only warmed it up for like 10 minutes, and then when I was accelerating hard, I just felt this big loss of power, especially in the top end. If you feel that, something happened, you need to stop before it gets worse. My mistake, because I was young, dumb, ignorant, I just kept on riding, and eventually the piston seized to the cylinder and I had to rebuild, replace the whole top end. Another sign is when there's an excessive amount of oil leaking from the seals. So if your dirt bike has a lot of hours on it, you see maybe on the cylinder, the head, the crankcase, there might be a little bit of oil leaking out of it. That's pretty common on a bike with high hours, but if there's an excessive amount of oil and it doesn't have too many hours on it, then there's a chance that it could be overheating, especially if it's an O-ring. O-rings, they'll melt if they get too hot, and then they won't be able to seal out exhaust or oil from the engine. Another really common sign that your bike is overheating is a red hot head pipe. So this is typically on a 4-stroke. You generally won't see it on a 2-stroke. So the head pipe coming out from the cylinder head, it will get cherry red hot. It'll be glowing if it's way too hot. Now this could be caused by just sitting there idling too long and needs airflow to cool the bike down, or it could just be from a lean air-fuel mixture, whether the carb is jetted too lean or the fuel injection isn't properly tuned. Maybe you installed an aftermarket exhaust. It may cause it to run leaner, so not enough fuel is getting through the engine to cool it down properly. Another sign, which I've kind of already mentioned, is your engine locking up or seizing. So if you're out riding, maybe you warmed it up too quickly, or it just had one of the other symptoms above and it eventually just locked up. It killed. Oh, no. And you try and push the electric start button, or you try and kick it over with a kickstart and it doesn't move. Well, this is definitely not a good sign. There's a chance it may have overheated, maybe part of the piston broke, but you need to check it out. You may need to start pulling the exhaust off or take the top end apart to actually see what happened. You can actually check the oil to see if there's an excessive amount of metal in the oil, and if there is, then there's a lot of damage, and unfortunately you're gonna have to rebuild something. What it is, you'll have to take it apart to know for sure what it needs. And another common symptom is when your clutch starts dragging. So maybe you've been riding for a while and the clutch is working fine, but all of a sudden it starts dragging. So when you pull it in, you put it in gear and the bike starts moving, so it's not fully disengaging. This is probably because the clutch is too hot and the plates have expanded or they warped, so there's more friction. They're touching each other and they're trying to grab, and this is what's causing the bike to move forward. So it could be caused by one of the symptoms that I already mentioned, or it could just be as simple as poor clutch control. So when you have bad clutch control, this heats up the clutch, the oil, the engine a lot faster. And I have a really simple video to help you improve your clutch control. You can check that out here. Did your dirt bike have any of the symptoms I mentioned above? Let me know in the comments below. I want to help you solve the problem. This is Kelly Fager from Motocross Hideout. Learn more, ride more, so that you can stay safe and have fun for many years to come.